All right, guys, it's Sunday morning. Diving into this here real quick. Just gonna lift the engine up. Like I said, I'm gonna use the engine crane to do that. Grab onto the bolts here, lift it up, give me enough space to crawl underneath there, move around. Subframe bolts out, caliper off. Just take it right off, zip tie it up or bungee cord it up or whatever. And then the tie rod end. Get that out of there. 3 strut mount bolts, subframe bolts, and then it should come right down. So everything else is disconnected, linkage is disconnected, wiring harness is out, battery cables are disconnected. Take them out of the fuse box here, the ground strap right there. That's probably the easiest thing to do. You don't have to fight yourself around the back of the engine with the starter and stuff. Just on these, the positives right here. Ground strap right here, just remove that guy. Easy, push them over onto the engine. Vacuum lines and stuff were removed earlier yesterday, intercooler pipes obviously. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Vacuum line is off, heater core hoses are off. It's easier to take them off the engine than get under there and try to wrestle them off the car. Just push them out of the way. So that's it. Also, for my sanity and the lack of mess, I left the power steering all connected. So don't have to mess with it. Don't have to worry about it leaking everywhere. Luckily, the lift hook has 3 good strong points here to pull that out. Back one is always been the same. So that's it. Pretty straightforward now. Like I said, just unbolt and stuff and lift up the engine. We're good. We're gonna switch to a time lapse now and see you when I see you. All right, so engine's up. I did just notice that doing that time lapse for like 5 minutes drained like half the battery. So unfortunately, I don't know that I'll be able to do that either. I'm gonna have to turn down the resolution on these things. I was hoping to keep it 4K so that it's a good video, but as you see, the engine's up, engine stands are under it, tires are under it. Since I'm going to be under this thing, shaking it around, I just wanted to have some extra support under there. These are not the, oh yeah, kind of an important thing too. If you haven't heard, if you have these old Harbor Freight jack stands, mine are not Harbor Freight and they're super old. Make sure you get them swapped out or stop using them. They, I mean, having a car fall on you is probably pretty terrible. So be safe, everyone. Anyways, throw a tire under there. I have jack stands under the back as well, just to make sure that, the full car wouldn't fall on me. So anyways, probably gonna be a little bit less video today, just because I just mangled the battery doing that time lapse, but I'll show you here in just a minute. But again, tie rod end, calipers are going to come off. I believe these are 8mm Allens. I believe that's the case. I'll find out in a minute. Take those, push them out of the way. That way you don't have to mess with brakes and brake lines and bleeding and all that stuff. But you can usually hang those, find a screw or something underneath and hang them, or zip tie them or bungee them right from the strut mount. Hang them right from that. So I'll take a couple pictures, or I guess video, when I get underneath, and I can show you what bolts need to be removed, but it isn't too many. I mean, I'll tell you, there's one up in the front for each side. Well, these aren't the bolts, they're underneath. And there's 2 in the back, one that's about midway and one that's further back where the stanchion arm goes through. The one in the back where the stanchion arm goes through is the bolt that people break. So luckily this car doesn't have any rust issues, but pretty much a nightmare when those things break. You gotta cut a hole in the floor, weld the new nut in. All right, so brakes are off. Steering tie rod end thingamajobber there is off. So I do have to take the bolts up here out, but that's sort of the last thing I'll do. But these will come out. Obviously, the engine is being suspended, although the engine mounts in the subframe are still in. So this will allow me, though, to do subframe bolts and then the engine mounts, and then the car will stay up in the air. So it just kind of stinks that you have to do it with crane this way. It kind of impedes where you would naturally lie. A joist across the top would be nice, but probably not going to happen in a condo. So I'm going to be doing this for the next few minutes. I'll turn the video back on as I lower it out so you guys can watch that. Just want to give an update. So see you in a few. So, good news. I'm sure you just saw. Engine came right out, which is great. Nothing better than taking an engine out the bottom. Not really a lot of stuff to get in the way, to get hung up on. You have to fight getting it around rails, all that stuff. So, good news, it's all out. Bad news is, oops, there's more coolant in there. For having so much coolant in the exhaust, I'm really surprised there's so much in the engine. I don't know if you can see this from here, but I'm like 3 inches too short from getting this out the front. So what I'm going to end up having to do is take off the subframe, pop the axles out, take the subframe off, lift the engine up a little bit so I can put one of the skids under the engine and transmission without the subframe, and then I'll just slide it out the side. I don't think that I have any more room to go up on these jack stands, so I'm not even going to try to do that. I guess I have bricks and stuff. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll do that. I do have some bricks. So let me see if I can't lift it up any higher before I start tearing it apart. I guess we'll see. All right, so I was able to jack it back up further with the engine crane. I had some cinder blocks over here, some solid ones, not like building blocks, solid concrete blocks. So the car is going to be up a little bit higher. It's going to be able to pull the engine straight out of there. Then I can start taking the subframe. Really all that's holding the engine to the subframe right now is the rear mount. So once I get that, I'll be able to pull them apart. Just going to drag them out as they are. It's actually on the base of the engine crane, so it is on wheels. That's when I start separating it, get it away from the car, then I can lift it up, pull the subframe out, and work on separating things. But here we are, apart for now. Once I do get it apart, the subframe is free. I'll show you guys the bushings and stuff that's in there. There's proparts that are not in great shape, so we'll do that, and then at some point I have the power flex that have to go in, so we'll work on that too. So for now, I'm just going to work on getting the engine out, so the next time you see it, it should at least be out from underneath the car, and I'll be working on it. Engine is out. I spared you the what was likely hilarious video of me getting it all situated so that I could get the transmission off. Transmission is off, obviously. I just took the bolts for the clutch out. Once the clutch is off, I'll be able to put this and starter, obviously. Once the clutch and starter are off, I will put this up on an engine stand, and then I can start pulling the turbo kit and all the other stuff off of this. But so far so good. Cranking it over, still has compression, enough anyways to take the clutch bolts, not the flywheel bolts, but the pressure plate bolts off. So this clutch, a Spec 3 Plus is what I have on here. When I put this together, I was anticipating making a bunch of power, so I went with the 3 Plus. It's something like 600 pounds of torque that it holds, so I'll take it apart in a minute. I'll show you. I think this car has, I probably put like 15,000 miles on it anyways with the whole set and stuff, so some of it's commuting back and forth to Massachusetts, but we'll take it apart here in a second, show you how it looks. I don't know how it looks yet, so we'll see. But then we can put it on the engine stand and start pulling it apart. Not a lot going to be added today, past where we are. Engine, everything's out. I was looking at the subframe. I'll get to that in a little bit. Maybe I'll do that after this. I did want to hit it with a power washer, but you can see the bushings sticking out of it and stuff. Those are the proparts Sweden, which, you know, of course everybody knows they're garbage, but I don't know what I was thinking. Being lazy, I guess. The rest of the car is Power Flex. I don't know why I put those in there. So here we are, putting it together, or taking it apart, I should say. Clutch comes off now. So when I come back to see how the clutch looks after 15,000 miles of me just driving like an idiot. So see you in a bit. All right, so I got the clutch off. Pressure plate is off anyways. I'm gonna leave the flywheel on. I'm pretty sure I can leave the flywheel on the engine stand. Don't really have any need to take those off. I know the rear main is good, but here is my Spec 3 Plus friction disc. Pretty good, I would say. I don't have a meter to measure the depth here, but looks pretty uniform. Looks pretty good. Backside is the same. I don't see any overheating, any signs of overheating. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. All the springs, the double springs are in place. No real bluing or anything here. You can obviously see where it's been slipped, but nothing too crazy. Same over here. Flywheel looks pretty good. Only places where it's gross is where I was touching it, but looks all right. So I'll definitely say that the Spec is not the most like street-friendly clutch. But I've driven it back and forth to Massachusetts, like driving it through New York City, like cross Bronx and stuff, and pretty manageable. I did make the mistake of breaking it in on the way to Massachusetts, and that trip was a nightmare. But since it was broken in, no problems. Can't complain at all. Pretty happy with it, I would say. So I know Spec kind of has a reputation for being really chattery. This setup, the 3 Plus, has not been. So with that, I just got to make sure that I have the bolts. And I'm going to put this on the engine stand. Like I said, I can start tearing it apart from this point. So probably this is going to do it for this weekend. I've spent a lot of time in the garage. I don't want to be here anymore. All right, so engine is out, engine's on the stand, transmission is separated, everything's bolted up, ready to go. I'm not going to start tearing this down tonight, maybe one of the nights this week after work. I feel like I've already made far too much video. So I did want to cover, smash it into this one video, these bushings. So obviously with the Saabs, there's his OEM, there's the original rubber stuff, and then there's always the option with polys, right? And these 9.3s, they have tons of movement in the front end. So a lot of people like to go with the polys. They're kind of expensive. You know, they end up being like $85 for each joint, we'll call it. So each set of bushings, each pair. So, you know, times, you know, 85, 85, 85, and then the back, you know, and then 85 for these or whatever it is. You know, the poly engine mounts, those are whatever the hell they are. I mean, it gets expensive after a while. So it gets expensive very quickly. So I said it probably once or twice earlier, but I wanted to show these proparts Sweden bushings. This is the better one. I'll show you that one over there in a second, but I probably should have prepped for this. Be right back. All right, we're back. All right, so got it most of the way out here. Just want to pop it out the rest and show you guys. But if you're considering saving a couple bucks with the proparts bushings, my advice is going to be don't. Right. So this is, I just did these, I want to say last summer. So there's a season in these. So they were in there. It's all chopped up. It's all beat up. They're super, I don't know. They're not very durable. They wallow out. So I'm going to guess that once I take a look at this guy, this one's not as bad. But they'll wallow out, right? So I should have a hammer or something to try to do this. All right, so forgive me for using an extension as a hammer here, but there we go. So push the center out, and then I actually got to say I'm impressed by this one. It's coming out, but I'm not here to mess with that right now. Actually, it's coming out. Hang on. See if I can tripod this real quick. If this looks bad, I'll just edit it out. So, all right. So, okay. So, got this thing out here. You can see, it was originally greased, so it's okay in that regard. This thing's is what it is. You can actually see, because this rubber has been chewed up so much, the stanchion arm itself is actually smashing into the subframe. So I'm gonna have to take a look and see if maybe the subframe housing here got crushed somehow by over tightening or something. But realistically, these have a big steel bolt in the center, which should prevent it from crushing too much. So I'll have to take a look at that. But anyways, if you look at these things, they're pretty wallowed out. So there's just so much movement that happens in them, and you end up with play. So this is actually the better of the two. Let's switch over to the other side and show you that one. So again, this is the better of the two. Let's see. Now we switch over here. Put you down for a second. Yeah, someone crawling on the floor. Switch over to this guy. So this is actually backwards. This is the back of the subframe. So this would actually be the passenger side. But the passenger side, look at this thing. It is destroyed. Just absolutely destroyed. And this is, I don't know, this can't be more than 5 months of use. So yes, the car is lowered, but these are poly bushings. That's what they're for. They're designed to work in this situation. So in either case, when the 9.3 goes together, I have some of the PowerFlex. I have to order actually I have to order these, but I have these in PowerFlex, and then I forget if those are PowerFlex, but if they're not, I'm going to make sure that I get them. This seems like definitely one of the bigger ones. I've seen this car with a launch, and you can just see the whole wheel just moving, like lurching in the wheel well. It's pretty ugly. So anyways, this is like a few months, and this is not atypical. This is what you expect from these things. So if it were me, if it were my money, there are some bushings that are okay, like the rear trailing arms on a 9.5 are good from the proparts Sweden, and then the rear of the lower control arms on the 9.5 are actually okay. I mean, PowerFlex would be better, but those are like just big, solid bushings that don't deteriorate. I actually had good luck with those in the wagon. I think that probably has about 70,000 miles on those bushings, so it's done pretty well. But anyways, you know, for the engine mounts, you can't beat genuine Saab, the Taliaferro mounts. I have all three. So there's the transmission mount, the engine mount is on the other side, and then there's the rear mount. They're awesome. Can't really say enough about those. This one looks like it's getting a little bit worn. I don't know if it's poly or just a hardened rubber, but it's got a little like thrust play to it. So in either case, this is out. So now I can start focusing on the engine. Promise this is the last part. I took this apart a while ago, kind of quickly in the quick thing. I did want to go over this really quickly because these 9.3s, the 900s, they have a bad habit of blowing out the low speed resistor, and then you basically have overheating problems. I did want to put it out there for anybody that is, whether you're modifying the car or you're just like, hey, I'm sick of this stupid fan. Spal fans, 13-inch fans. I'll see if I can get close enough so that you can see my part numbers. It's 13-inch fan. Anyways, short version is they're super low draw, and they mount right to the radiator, and they are almost a perfect fit, actually. So you put it on either one of the sides, I guess. You could put it in the middle. I don't see why not. I pushed it over to the side to keep it away from the turbo. But in either case, because they're such low draw, you can actually get rid of the resistor and make it so that the fan gets full power, or full voltage, I should say, in low and high. So inside that electrical tape, the wires are just together. So common ground and then the different powers. So again, there's such low draw. I think this thing is something like 7 or 12 amps. It's pretty low, and so I have it set up that basically low speed, high speed. It just comes on. So I did want to share that information with everybody in case you had issues. When I lifted the head, it pressurized the whole cooling system and actually blew up the old radiator and blew up the heater core. So I had to buy a new radiator. This is actually an original Nissan's OEM. So like I said, this is OEM radiator. It's 13-inch fan, fits right on there, and then you can just use the nylon zip ties. The body of the spal is it mounts flush, so you don't have to worry about any of the shrouding or anything like that. So if you need a part number, let me know. Like I said, I'm just trying to share what I have, the experience I have with everybody, so for better or for worse, if you need anything, let me know. Otherwise, for the last time, I appreciate it. Have a good weekend, and we'll probably see you next weekend, if not this week.